Alrighty, let's do session 7B. Please elaborate. Using our mentor essay and argument writing checklist to improve our writing. Remember in session 6C when we talked about the writing checklist? One of the categories was about development of your ideas, with a subcategory of elaboration. Elaboration means to give more information, more explanation, the addition of more detail to your writing. For our case, though, we're going to focus on elaboration as explain how the reasons and evidence support the claim and strengthen my argument. It's kind of like what we noticed in our mentor essay, when it said, "This shows that he is brave because he is not intimidated even though he has good reason to be." This sentence comes right after a quote taken from the story of the Three Little Pigs. This sounds kind of familiar. Oh yes, it sounds like the fourth element of a constructed response, the explain your thinking part. You give your textual evidence, then you add your thoughts to explain to your reader how your textual evidence proves you're right. You can use writing prompts like "this shows" and "this means." Okay, so we understand what to do, but how do we do it? What does it look like? Here's my sample essay from last session. I need to add explanation to my evidence. Well, my first evidence is in my body 1 paragraph. That's where we'll start. The first quote I use is, "She tosses it aside and gives it another go." Using one of my sentence starters, I could say, "This means the girl doesn't just try once and give up. No, she sets the wrong item aside and tries again." Okay, that works for the first piece of textual evidence, but I have another one in this paragraph too. The girl saws and glues and adjusts. She stands and examines and stares. She twists and tweaks and fastens. Maybe I'll use a different sentence starter to make my elaboration go something like this. This shows the girl is trying multiple ways to be successful instead of giving up on the first try. Now I've added elaboration to both pieces of textual evidence. Here's what it would sound like all together. The girl shows determination because she tries again and again. After the girl makes the first thing, she notices it's not right. She tosses it aside and gives it another go. This means the girl doesn't just try once and give up. No, she sets the wrong item aside and tries again. In another part of the story, the girl saws and glues and adjusts. She stands and examines and stares. She twists and tweaks and fastens. This shows the girl is trying multiple ways to be successful instead of giving up on the first try. Notice I put my elaboration or explaining sentences right behind my quotes so my reader can see that they are related. After all this, I may want to add one more sentence to the end of this paragraph to remind my reader of the point of all this evidence in explaining. Maybe I'll use one of the sentence starters mentioned in the transitions category of the argument writing checklist. This evidence suggests that the girl does indeed have determination because she tries more than one time to get her magnificent thing right. I think adding this sentence would just conclude this paragraph really well and make sure my reader fully understands what I want them to understand. All right, now I've elaborated on the evidence of my body 1 paragraph. Now for the second support reason paragraph. Here's possible elaboration I could make on my textual evidence. Another example of the girl showing determination is when she finds the positives in the things she made. It's right after she gets frustrated and takes a walk. Then she notices something surprising. There are some parts of the wrong things that are really quite right. The bolts on one, the shape of another, the wheel to seat ratio of the next. There are all sorts of parts that she likes. According to this evidence, after a moment away from her work, the girl is able to regroup, take a look at what she's already done, and notice that some of her ideas were just right. This shows determination because the girl is able to ignore the frustrating wrong things and focus on the positives of the right things. Notice I put my elaboration or explaining sentence right after my textual evidence to show the connection. According to this evidence, after a moment away from her work, the girl is able to regroup, take a look at what she's already done, and notice that some of her ideas were just right. I also added a bit of a conclusion sentence just to remind my reader what the point of my paragraph is. This shows determination because the girl is able to ignore the frustrating wrong things and focus on the positives of the right things. Okay, now it's your turn. I've elaborated on my 2 body paragraphs. I want you to do the same thing. In fact, you may want to highlight and underline your elaborations just like I did to prove to yourself that you've done it correctly. highlights for your explaining, and underlines for your final conclusion sentence. See, I did it in both of my paragraphs. Okay, it is your turn. Find where you typed up your middle school literary essay about character during last session and go forth and elaborate. Off you go.